what is happening to f of x as x approaches positive infinity and negative infinity for the function f of x equals negative 4x cubed plus 5x squared minus 7. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. Okay, one way is to understand the leading term and the degree and how that affects the end behavior. Okay, so that's really what's going on here, right? So as x approaches infinity, right, f of x approaches infinity, right, this is what we call up and to the right. Okay, so think about a basic graph here, right? Think about a basic graph, right? These are the x values, these are the y values, or the f of x values, right? So as x approaches infinity means as x is getting bigger, as we go to the right, the y values approach infinity, which means the graph just goes up, right, to the right. Or we can write it as x approaches infinity, right, f of x approaches negative infinity. Right, this is called down and to the right. Right, so to the right means x is still getting larger, right? But the y values are getting smaller to negative infinity. So our graph is going to go down. Okay, we're going to have an arrow on this side pointing down. Okay. On the other hand, right, as x approaches negative infinity, right, f of x approaches positive infinity. So this is known as up and to the left, right? So we're going to go up and to the left here. To the left means as x gets smaller. Up means the y values getting larger. Okay, so what's the last one here? Well, as x approaches negative infinity, f of x approaches negative infinity. This is called down and to the left. Okay. Our graph is going to look a little something like this, right? We don't know what happens here, okay, but we know that on the end, right, we're going to be pointing down. Okay. All right, so there's a couple things we can do here, right? We can use the end behavior, right, the leading term and the degree to help us, or we can just make a table, right? We can plug in like, I don't know, plug in like 10, negative 10, and plug in 100 and negative 100, and 1,000, negative 1,000, and just see what is happening to those y values. Okay. Now we should mention, right? It's only the leading term that matters. Okay. So the fact that this is to the third power and this is the second power, right? The key is as x is getting really large, right? The leading term is the one that's going to dominate. Okay. So I'm not saying that these terms don't matter. Okay. So these terms determines what happens inside. Okay. But the leading term determines what happens at the end. Okay. So what can we determine, right? We can determine that this function is odd, right? Okay. The degree is odd, okay, which means we're going to have an S-type shape, right? If the degree was even, we would have a U shape, okay? But because this is odd, we're going to have an S shape, and the leading term in this case, right, is negative. Okay. So what does that mean for our end behavior then? We're going to go up and to the left and down and to the right. Okay. So you need to make sure you understand the connection between the polynomial being odd or even, and the difference, what happens when the leading term is positive or negative.